pra Oslo, pra sair no Oslodum. Bloco asfro da terra do bacalhau.
Oi, tudo bem? Welcome to the fourth lesson in a special series I've created to help you to jumpstart your Brazilian Portuguese. I'm Professor Jason, and today I'll be teaching you about nouns and articles, the words in Portuguese for the, a, an, and some, as well as some terms to talk about colors so that you can start to describe basic objects. Now this lesson touches on several really important concepts, but if you pay close attention, it should be easy enough to follow along and well worth your time. So let's get started. Vamos começar. Okay, so I want to begin just by giving you a quick overview of what I plan to present. We'll start off by talking about nouns, and I'll introduce the concept of gender and number of objects, and also the definite and indefinite articles, how to introduce a noun with the words in Portuguese for the, a, an, and some. And then we'll switch gears a little bit and talk about the terms for the most common terms for colors in Brazilian Portuguese. And then I'll show you a syntactic structure for describing the colors of objects, right? And you'll see the importance of noun-adjective agreement. And then finally, we'll talk about asking and answering questions about the color of objects, and I'll give you a couple practice exercises and the answers. So here we see an example or examples of two nouns or objects that are masculine, considered masculine and singular. O sapato and o anel. The plural forms of these masculine objects, masculine nouns I should say, are os sapatos and os anéis. Here we see two examples of nouns that are feminine and singular. A xícara and a flor. Xícara, flor. Plural forms of those feminine nouns would be as xícaras, as flores. Okay, in terms of grammatical number and gender, I want to point out something that you may be familiar with if you already have learned Spanish. In Brazilian Portuguese, many words for objects will end in the vowel O or A. Most of the time, you can predict the grammatical gender. If a word ends in O, it's usually masculine. If a word ends in A, like xícara, it's usually feminine. Not all the time, but probably 80 to 85 to 90% of the time. You pluralize these by simply adding the letter S. However, as you can tell from the words that I've just underlined, words for objects in Portuguese don't always end with O or A. Sometimes they'll end in a consonant or another vowel. In these cases, it's much more difficult to guess whether the object is going to be grammatically masculine or feminine. You basically have to just know. Also, you can see that there are different ways to pluralize these types of nouns that end in consonants. We're going to use these same objects, these same nouns, and talk about definite articles. A definite article is the word the, right? It introduces a noun, an object like these. So, in Brazilian Portuguese, the definite article, the word for the, has to agree. It will indicate the masculinity or femininity and whether that object is singular or plural. So we have four. It's o, as in o sapato, or os sapatos, a xícara, or the plural as xícaras. In this view, I've replaced those definite articles, o, a, os, and as, with the indefinite articles. These are the equivalents for a, an, and some. So again, we're going to have four because we have singular, plural, masculine, and feminine. Singular masculine is anel, Plural is uns anéis. Feminine singular, uma flor. Plural feminine, umas flores. Again, so that might be some flowers or a few flowers. Uma flor would be a flower, right? These are the indefinite articles. Okay, now don't forget what we just learned about objects, nouns, definite and indefinite articles, and the agreement in terms of gender and number, because we're going to come back to those concepts in a minute. What I want to do now is just give you an overview of the terminology used to describe colors in Brazilian Portuguese. Now, we're not going to go through the entire rainbow, but I'm going to give you 10 to 13 different terms, okay? So let's start with the equivalent for black. In Brazilian Portuguese, it's preto. Preto. White is branco. Branco. Yellow is amarelo. Amarelo. Red, vermelho. Vermelho. Purple, roxo. Roxo. Green, verde. Verde. Brown, marrom. Marrom. Blue, azul. Azul. Orange, laranja. Laranja. Pink. Couple of terms. Probably the most common you'll hear is cor-de-rosa. Cor-de-rosa. Or just rosa. Gray is cinza. Cinza. Silver is prateado or prata. Prata. Prateado. Gold is dourado. Dourado. The material is ouro. Ouro. So the color, dourado. Alright, so now we're ready to combine those terms for colors with the concepts we were talking about earlier. Nouns, objects, masculinity, femininity, singular, plural. And we're going to be using colors as adjectives, right, to describe those objects. So to do this, we need to keep a couple things in mind. First, when we're using colors to describe nouns, those color terms function as adjectives. And that means, secondly, that their forms may need to be inflected to show agreement in number and gender, or gender and number. And so, for example, if we want to describe different objects which are black, we may have to choose between 4 different inflected manifestations of that term black, right? Preto, masculine singular. Pretos, masculine plural. Preta, feminine singular. Or if we're describing something that's feminine plural, pretas. So in this next part of the lesson, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through various slides, one for each of the colors that we just learned, and I will show you 4 different objects, masculine singular, masculine plural, feminine singular, feminine plural, and you'll see that agreement, and feel free to repeat along with me as I say these. You'll see the agreement between the indefinite article, that's the one I'm going to use, uns, uma, or umas, that number and gender of the object or noun, and the form of the color word. So let's start with coisas pretas, black things. We have sapato preto, uns sapatos pretos, uma carteira preta, umas botas pretas. Coisas brancas. Queijo branco, uns ovos brancos, uma xícara branca, umas almofadas brancas. And I'm not going to define what all these words mean. Hopefully you get that from the pictures. Almofadas are the pillows or the cushions. Coisas amarelas, yellow things. Capacete amarelo, masculine singular. Uns patinhos amarelos, masculine plural. Uma moldura amarela, feminine singular. Umas flores amarelas, feminine plural. Coisas vermelhas, red things. Cinto vermelho. Uns lábios vermelhos. Uma cesta vermelha. Umas framboesas vermelhas. Coisas roxas, purple things. Porquinho roxo. Uns óculos roxos. Uma flor roxa. Umas joias roxas. Ou umas pedras roxas. Joias roxas. Green things. Coisas verdes. Botão verde, masculine singular. Uns limões verdes, masculine plural. Uma maçã verde. Umas folhas verdes. Brown things. Coisas marrons. Chapéu marrom, a brown hat, masculine singular. Uns ovos marrons. Uma bossa marrom. Umas gavetas marrons. I may want to point out here that the color term marrom, right, does not have a different iteration or inflection for gender. Masculine singular, marrom, chapéu marrom. Feminine singular, bolsa marrom. And to pluralize it, you add ns. Ovos marrons, gavetas marrons. Blue things. Look for the irregular or the different looking, shouldn't say irregular, different looking plural here, right? Coisas azuis. Remember the singular is azul. Plural, azuis. Céu azul, blue sky. Céu azul, blue tiles. Azulejos azuis. Azulejos azuis. Uma sacola azul. Umas malas azuis. Orange things. Coisas laranja ou coisas alaranjadas. And you'll see from this slide that there are a few different ways that you can express the idea of the color orange. Masculine singular, pimentão. Pimentão laranja. Masculine plural, traffic cones. Uns cones alaranjados. Glove. Uma luva de cor laranja, or just laranja. Feminine plural, camisetas, t-shirts. Umas camisetas laranja. Umas camisetas alaranjadas, or umas camisetas de cor laranja. So a few different options. Pink things. Coisas cor-de-rosa. A pink cast, masculine singular. Gesso cor-de-rosa. Uns envelopes cor-de-rosa, or uns envelopes rosadas. Rosados should be rosados. Uma peruca cor-de-rosa, feminine singular. Peruca, wig. Uma peruca cor-de-rosa, and then petals, feminine plural. Umas pétalas cor-de-rosa. Moving on to coisas cinzas, gray things or grayish things. We have sofá cinza. Notice here that even though the noun for the object sofa ends in an A, sofá, it's grammatically masculine. Sofá cinza. But the color term cinza doesn't have an inflection for gender. So this one looks wrong, but it's right. Sofá masculine, cinza. Generic color term inflection there. And then a grayish cat or a cat with some gray, gato cinzento. This one does inflect for number and gender, this form, cinzento. So cinza doesn't, masculine or feminine, plural or singular. But if I use the term grayish with some gray markings, some gray highlights, gato cinzento, this one would have a feminine form or a plural form. Let's talk about silvery and gold. Okay, on this side we see a silver ring, a silver colored ring, or perhaps a ring made from silver, a silver ring. If I just want to emphasize that it's color, I would say anel prateado. Anel prateado. If it was something feminine, prateada. But if I want to emphasize that it is actually silver, I could say anel de prata. Anel de prata. Similarly, to talk about golden things or things that are golden in color, if it's the color I'm really emphasizing, dourado. Colar, a necklace, colar dourado. Or if I really want to be clear that it is made from gold, colar de ouro. So, colar dourado, colar de ouro. Alright, so we've just practiced combining the color words with objects and indefinite articles so that we could see the agreement in, for example, sapato preto, right? It's all masculine singular. Now say you wanted to do something a little bit more useful, such as, for example, ask someone else what color something is or talk about what color something is. In order to do that, instead of using the indefinite articles, the words for a or a, and the, or a few, we're going to go back to the definite article words, the equivalents of the. In other words, o, os, a, and as, and we have to pull in the singular or plural forms of the verb ser, to be, right? The singular form, if you recall from the previous lesson, is é. The plural form is são. They are. So if I want to ask what color something singular is, like the basket, I would use the expression de que cor é a cesta. So de que cor é, and then the object. De que cor é a cesta? And the person would answer with the object, verb, and then that modifier, that adjective color word. A cesta é vermelha. De que cor é a cesta? A cesta é vermelha. Okay, if the objects are plural that we're talking about, I have to use são. De que cor são, plus the objects. Okay? De que cor são os ovos? De que cor são os ovos? What color are the eggs? Os ovos são brancos. De que cor são os ovos? Os ovos são brancos. So, you got that? On this screen, what we're going to do is just practice that question and answer structure and dynamic using a few more examples with singular. We're going to see both masculine and feminine, but singular nouns. So if I want to ask what color is the cheese, de que cor é o queijo? De que cor é o queijo? Person would say, o queijo é branco. De que cor é o chapéu? O chapéu é marrom. O chapéu é marrom. Feminine, de que cor é a flor? De que cor é a flor? A flor é roxa. A flor é roxa. The wallet, it's feminine. De que cor é a carteira? A carteira é preta. So again, you can see how these color words that are functioning as adjectives in this construction have to agree in number. All these objects are singular, and in gender, right? O queijo é branco, o chapéu é marrom, a flor, feminine, a flor é roxa, and feminine, a carteira é preta. So you've got the singular down. Let's practice this construction, this structure, with some examples of plural masculine and feminine objects. Masculine, feminine, os cones, os patinhos, rubber duckies. De que cor são os cones? Os cones são alaranjados, or os cones são de cor laranja. De que cor são os patinhos? Os patinhos são amarelos. Os patinhos são amarelos. Feminine, plural. De que cor são as botas? As botas são pretas. So I have to use the feminine plural form of preto, which is pretas. as botas são pretas? De que cor são as flores? As flores são amarelas. Alright, so in the final segment of this lesson, which I hope you're finding very useful and helpful, what we're going to do are some exercises, first in the singular, then in the plural. How this is going to work is I'm going to ask you a question. For example, de que cor é o drink? You'll see the picture, you know what I'm talking about. You're either going to say out loud the answer, right? O drink é, or you can write them down, right? And if you want to hit pause, you can do that, because what I'm going to do after you've had a second or two is go ahead and come back, put the answer on the screen, and pronounce it. Sound good? So let's start with this first question. De que cor é o drink? De que cor é o drink? The answer is o drink é verde. O drink é verde. Remember to pause the video whenever you want if you need a little bit more time, you want to take a note or practice the pronunciation, okay? Second one for the singular, singular masculine. De que cor é o carro? De que cor é o carro? O carro é azul. O carro é azul. De que cor é a maçã? De que cor é a maçã? A maçã é vermelha. A maçã é vermelha. De que cor é a gravata? The tie. De que cor é a gravata? So you should have said out loud or written, a gravata é cor de rosa. A gravata é cor de rosa, or a gravata é rosada. So how'd you do with those singular objects? I'm sure you did just fine. Let's go ahead and start with the plural, same drill. First question is, de que cor são os grãos de café? De que cor são os grãos de café? Okay, so the correct answer that you should have said or written or thought about would involve the same form of the verb ser, são. Os grãos são marrons, or the longer form, os grãos de café são marrons. Here we have the plural form of, a yellow pepper, right? Pimentão. So, de que cor são os pimentões? De que cor são os pimentões? Answer would be, os pimentões são amarelos. Os pimentões são amarelos. To finish up, let's take a look at a couple of feminine plural nouns and talk about their colors. De que cor são as flores? De que cor são as flores? They are red, so the correct answer is, as flores são vermelhas. As flores são vermelhas. Last one. Now earlier we saw a word for ring was anel, with the plural anéis. But when you're talking about wedding bands or wedding rings, usually you use the term alianças or aliança. So, what color are these? De que cor são as alianças? De que cor são as alianças? Well, the rings, as alianças, are golden in color or gold. So you should have thought, written, or said, right? As alianças são dourados, or as alianças são de ouro. That's it. Hope you did well on these exercises. Means you've mastered this. If not, you can rewind and watch from any point. The next couple slides you're going to see are the photo credits, and then I'll see you on the other side. Alright, that's it for lesson 4 in my basic Brazilian Portuguese course. Hope you found this information on nouns, articles, agreement, and colors to be informative and useful. If so, please share it with others and be sure to let me know if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, okay? As always, thanks very much for watching and be sure to catch my next lesson. I'll see you then. Até breve. Tchau.
Eu vou pra Oslo, pra sair no Oslo.